today I wanted to share my experience of trying to build a full stack web application in 2023. This is going to be a rambly video with very little research, so please take what I say with a grain of salt. Before we start, just a little bit about me. I'm a full stack .NET developer using C# in my day job. The idea for this video came a couple of weeks ago. I wanted to build a full stack web application as a side project. High level feature this project needs to include is a login using email and many other social networking systems like Google, GitHub, Twitter, Facebook. There's two types of access level. There's an admin and user level. A user can follow and share. An admin can create, edit, delete, and update. And we need Google Maps integration. That's about it. So from the surface level, it's a very simple application, a login system, and a couple of CRUD operation, essentially. I did want to use .NET for my side project, mainly because of the cost of hosting a .NET application, and also wanted to try out, what other people are using, the other applications that are out there. I wanted to go back to JavaScript and see the landscape now compared to 2018, back when I used it for university. I was kind of interested in Ruby on Rails too, so I wanted to see what that's like. So you can probably guess that I've made zero progress in my project so far. So while I was doing my research, one thing that kept coming back was how easy Ruby on Rails was to get your application running, and there was a lot of developer who enjoys using Ruby on Rails. So I started looking into Ruby on Rails and did a couple of tutorials. But one thing I found was the steep learning curve. If you wanted to follow a tutorial and build a CRUD operation quickly, yes, you can do it with Ruby on Rails. But if you wanted to make any changes or try to fully understand what's going on with the application under the hood, I found it to be quite difficult to wrap your head around. I mean, Ruby on Rails main tagline is convention over configuration. So that means do it the Ruby on Rails way, which is not a bad thing, certainly, but I feel that you can fully use Ruby on Rails if you've been working with Rails for a while. Although Rails was a very good framework, I bit off more than I could chew because I never worked with Ruby before, so I had to learn the language Ruby as well as the framework Rails. So the confusion just became overwhelming. To be honest, I wanted this side hustle to, eventually grow big and build a company around it. And the one thing I did find while searching through web is how little Ruby on Rails is being used compared to JavaScript and even .NET framework. People constantly are looking for developers to take on Rails project, and apparently it's quite difficult to hire for these roles because not many people are using it. And there is a well-known issue with Rails that it is difficult to install and work on Windows application, and its beginner learning curve is very high. Many new projects are not using Rails, so not a lot of new developers are coming into this framework. So thinking about the future of my project and whether I could hire developers in the future, so those type of questions kept me from going full on with Rails. So I thought maybe if my project did go through, which and get somewhat big, maybe I couldn't hire developers. Now I know these are silly, honestly, and most likely that this project is not gonna go anywhere, but I need to know exactly what I'm signing up to before I sign up to it. And that is a bad habit. I know it's a bad habit because that prevents you from jumping into opportunities that could be really good for you, but you just do not see the full picture, so you just don't jump into it. And I don't know I don't know what to do about it, honestly. So I tried to look at the full picture, and I tried to see if I could see myself using Ruby on Rails and hiring developers in the future. So I just couldn't see it. Not many people are building new stuff with Rails, so they're not gonna be a huge pool of developers to hire from in the future. So yeah, I sort of just stopped on Rails and started looking elsewhere. I think I spent about 2 or 3 days on Ruby on Rails trying to understand Ruby as well as pick up Rails at the same time and have a full-time job. So yeah, eventually I just said, okay, instead of trying to learn a brand new language and pick up a new framework, why don't I just pick up something that I sort of understand already and other people are using, JavaScript. And JavaScript in 2023 feels like when you're jumping into a new game that's been out for 10 years. What I mean by that is there are so many terminologies, so many ways of doing things. It's going to be at least a couple of days of research to find the tech stack that's perfect for your application. Your ultimate goal is to build this application, but there are so many different ways of doing this, and there's so many bad ways you could go down that you have, at least for me, I have to know what I'm getting myself into. So I started doing some research on looking at all the different frameworks that are out there, and some of you might say, okay, that's the first mistake, because you should just start from whatever you know and build from that. And to be honest, I kind of agree with you right now. Just go with any framework, honestly, just any framework, and just make a start. Don't be like me and just stay in a limbo for weeks and weeks on end, just cannot decide on what framework to pick. And framework isn't even the correct terminology anymore, because frameworks is referring to things like React, Vue, Angular, and everyone knows like those things alone cannot build you a full stack web application. So you would need a full stack framework. So a full stack framework like Next.js, SvelteKit, Vue has something I don't even remember. Each of these framework has their own meta frameworks. If you're not in this field for a long time, for me, I was only working on .NET C#, so I wasn't in this JavaScript field. You build gaps of knowledge when you're trying to build something brand new, especially now if you're not in this field already, because first you have to learn React. How does React work? What are the pros and cons? And then you have to learn about the framework that React sits in, which is Next.js. Okay, what does this framework offer that I cannot just build with React? Why can't I just use React for everything? Well, then you realize, okay, you need to talk to your database, you need routing, you need so many things that this other framework is offering you. And then when you try to build something with that, you need to know, okay, I want to do this specific thing. What do I look at? Do I look at my framework level? Do I look at the full do I look at Node.js level, or do I look at it in the React level, or do I look at it in the JavaScript level? It all becomes very muddly, and you could say, okay, you just don't have enough fundamental in web development. And yeah, you are correct. Yeah, I may not have the fundamental, but to be honest, why is the fundamental so complicated? Why do we have so many different steps, and why do we have so many different things that you need to consider? And that's not even the right question. Like, we have so many different things because it is needed or it is wanted, right? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, being a full stack developer, it's possible, but I don't recommend it to anyone right now. I think you should focus on either front end or back end and become really good at it, because there are so many different technologies in each of these two fields, like front end or back end, that if you want to build something truly custom, or if you want to build something that you really understand from front to back, it's going to take a lot of time for you to get used to these technologies that are used in the back end and the front end. And if you can divide yourself in one of the fields, you can very quickly get up to speed with it, rather than trying to learn both at the same time. Now, if you want your side hustle to do well, there are a couple of other things that you also need to think about, like the rendering method. So just from my tiny research, you have SPA, where single page application. So the server sends a root shell from the server to the client, and client builds the website using JavaScript. Now these are quite the advantage of these applications are, yeah, they're quite user friendly. They almost work like a mobile application, very limited loading time, etc, etc. But they're not very good for ranking well in Google search, because the Google bot doesn't know what's on your website because everything is built using JavaScript on the client side, rather than the server sending you the complete page from the server end. So the bot doesn't know what content actually within the application, within your website. So you need to think about these things. I know there are other rendering methods like SSR, server-side rendering. So the server generates the application, server generates the web page and all the content before sending it to the client. The good thing about that is Google bots, search engine bots, they know exactly what's the content of the web page. You can rank higher on the search engine, which you want, because you want your side hustle to do well, right? So React sort of works in the first paradigm, which is an SPA, because it sends a big load of JavaScript to the client, and the client browser builds the application for you. So my app would be really bad for search engine optimization. There is a hybrid model as well, which is SSG. I think it's called static site generation. So it's good for bot, and the time to interaction is much lower, because you can sort of interact with the application, or at least see the content while it's building the interaction, while it's doing the JavaScript bits. So you have these three paradigm: SSR, SSG, and SPA. So you need to think about these things if you want your side hustle to do well. Now you can say, okay, throw all of this in the bin, just build something. But then what would I throw in the bin? Like, these things were built for a purpose, right? And if you're a good developer, you should know about these things, I would say, and you should know the pros and cons, and you should use the tools that is right for your project. Then again, that's where my over analytical self just comes in, that I need to know everything, and I sort of become paralyzed in all of these options and don't take any action. Now that's where I am right now. This is why I'm making this video, because I am sort of like paralyzed, looking at all of these options that's available, and all of these techniques and things you may want to consider, you may need to consider. And to be honest, I've been thinking for a while that maybe I should throw all of this in the bin and just build something, and once I have enough momentum or enough making enough side income from it, I could hire the developers who can think this for me, and take this further, who are much better than me when it comes to making these decisions. So just hire people to do the things that I need. And to be honest, that's the path that I'm thinking of going down right now. Just quickly go back to my research again. I did look at, after I failed to go down the Ruby on Rail route, I did look at PHP Laravel. I did do PHP. I know how to use PHP. I didn't want to learn Laravel again. It would be another month of learning before I could even start building my application. So I didn't want to do that. And to be honest, I do have a soft space for JavaScript and JavaScript based framework. They give you a lot of options. There are a lot of tools out there. NPM is a gold mine of just things you can download and just use in your application. And yeah, I did want to go down the JavaScript route, and to be honest, it seems like everyone is using it. Maybe I'm just in a bubble, but I don't see a lot of tutorials about Laravel, PHP, or any spontaneous video that gets recommended to me about Laravel or Ruby on Rails, right? But I do see a lot of JavaScript framework content and just JavaScript tips and tricks in general. So I thought, okay, if I go down the JavaScript route, I will find developers in the future. I can find help if I need online, right? So, and there are lots of tutorial out there for JavaScript. So I thought, okay, let's go down the JavaScript route. Yeah, in recent times I think I'm sort of made up my mind that I am going down the JavaScript route, and we are going to, it's just a matter of what tools should I use to build this application. Now, any developer that worked in web knows there are so many different types of technology that goes into building a successful web application. It's not just a database, your server, and your front end, right? You have your CSS, or you can use Sass, or you can use a layout framework like Bootstrap, or Material UI, right? So these are just your front end consideration. You might want to think about caching. You might want to think about which type of database do you want to use. Do you want to use a SQL database or a NoSQL database? So these are the questions that I'm trying to answer for my side project right now, and there are a lot of options again. Or should I use a full stack framework like Next.js or Svelte Kit, should I say? Or for Angular, there's one for Angular, there's one for Vue as well. Or should I just go down and use a framework like React, Angular, or Svelte, build my own server, an Express server, and connect that to a database? Or should I go down the serverless framework, like use a Firebase functions to do all my server code and connect to my database and not have a server at all? So you can see like the options are bloody endless. So I guess you can see the dilemma that I'm running into right now. There are so many different technologies that you can use. So much noise in the world of JavaScript right now. There are so many different technology framework and things that you honestly don't need to care about. You just do not need to care about. But we do, because we are developers and we want our idea to succeed. Our ideas are like, your children, your kids. You want to give them the best possible situation for them to grow and become, independent. You want to get them to the best schools. You want to give them the best care. You want to teach them the best things so they can be the best adult they can possibly be. And same with your ideas. You want to pick the technology that are good for the problem that you're trying to solve. That is fast. That is good for SEO. Ticks all the right boxes. But honestly, we need to stop thinking of our ideas, our children, and think of them as something that's never going to be perfect. You'd always have to work on this thing, or at least until you sell it and make a lot of money, right? I guess the point of this video was for me to get this thought off my chest. I just want it to be out there, and it's almost like therapy for me. I'm always trying to see the full picture, trying to see everything about something before I jump in, and it's costing me time, and it's cost me just unnecessary stress. Honestly, I could just pick any technology, any framework, and just start building, learning and building it. But when there's so many options out there, and you start learning, and you pick one and you start learning, if you find any fault with it or anything that you don't like about it, you automatically start looking at, okay, what are the other options out there, and can those options make my life a bit easier? So I guess the call to action for this video is stop over analyzing and start doing, and that's what I'm going to do. I want your opinion on this. Please comment, what technology should I use? What tech stack should I use for this idea? User needs to log in. They need to follow certain topics. We need to have another admin type of user who can provide the CRUD operation. We also need a Google Maps integration. So that's about it. That's honestly the high level of my project. These are a couple of things that the system needs to be able to do. I want to be able to rank well in SEO. In terms of database, I guess I prefer SQL database over a NoSQL. So if we could use SQL database, that would be even better. So what technology should I use? That's the question I want to leave you guys with.